let's just see, this is a trailer for a movie that you have no one's seen, and it's actually about kids. And this trailer will give you a little insight into your relationship with the movies. Are you ready? Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. Let us start here. Let's see now if I can do this. Yes, there we go. So this is the new museum in Mumbai. There I am standing next to the sign. And this has the whole history. Do you know that India has as long a history of cinema as practically anywhere else in the world? Started here in 1896. And this is the museum campus. When you go to Mumbai, you can visit this museum. There it is. It was inaugurated in 2019. And I'm going to take you on a very, very whirlwind tour of this museum. Would you like to come with me? Okay, well, anyone who doesn't want to come with me, you can leave. Go ahead. Okay, so let's go. We're going to go on this wonderful Indian tradition of visual storytelling. And then in the late 1800s came these new machines, the prakascope, the magic lantern, and these guys in America and France and England were devising different things. And beginning of cinema started with the showing in France by the Lumiere brothers of a horse galloping. And they found out when they saw these moving pictures of a horse galloping. So a horse gallop, you see that little thing there, the horse gallop, they found out that no one ever knew it, but a horse. And the first film of the coronation of King George was made in 1911. There were by that time a bunch of production companies in India. And then you had the father of Indian filmmaking, 𝗩𝗶𝘀𝗶, come out with a couple of actual stories like Rajesh Harishchandra and 𝗏𝗏 And by 1920, you see you have 𝗏𝗏𝗏, a silent film. So all these religious stories were being brought to the screen, no nonsense stories, all religious. Then sound, early attempts. And the first film in the West was a film called The Jazz Singer, and then the first film in India was Alam Ara. And that was the first story. And this guy talks about the first talkie.
यानी साउंड के साथ बनाई हुई फिल्म आलम आरा मुंबई के ज्योति स्टूडियोज में शूट हुई थी। इंपीरियल फिल्म्स के फाउंडर अर्देशीर ईरानी ने ये फिल्म डायरेक्ट की थी और इसमें द लेजेंडरी पृथ्वीराज कपूर ने भी एक रोल प्ले किया था। और क्योंकि ये पहली टॉकी थी तो प्लेबैक सिंगिंग का भी कॉन्सेप्ट यहीं से स्टार्ट हुआ था। बट इस फिल्म को शूट करते वक्त उन्हें एक बड़ी प्रॉब्लम का सामना करना पड़ा। ये स्टूडियो रेलवे ट्रैक्स के पास था और उसके वजह से इस फिल्म की शूटिंग सिर्फ देर रात 1 बजे से 4 बजे तक हो पाती थी, जब मुंबई की लोकल्स बंद होती थी। अब सोचो, आप पहली बार ऐसी फिल्म देखने जा रहे हो जिसमें कैरेक्टर्स बात करेंगे और आप गाने भी सुन पाओगे। और इसी वजह से रिलीज होने के बाद ये फिल्म लगातार 8 हफ्तों तक हाउसफुल रही और इसकी टिकट ब्लैक मार्केट में 15 से 20 गुना ज़्यादा कीमत पर बेची जा रही थी। बट सैडली इस फिल्म की कोई भी प्रिंट अभी अवेलेबल नहीं है और ये फिल्म जहाँ शूट हुई थी वो जगह भी काफ़ी बुरे हाल।
So then it began to spread across India, and you have Kalidas, the book and story, the film and story of Kalidas, and films like Shakuntala and others, and many film companies came up, especially in Kolkata, by the way. Not so much in Bombay, but very much in Bengal. There was this very famous film, 𝗩𝗶𝗀, and the equipment was very heavy and very expensive and hard to lug to places, but you can see in the museum they've kept a bunch of the pieces of the equipment that was used in those days. Nothing like your phone. These pieces of equipment could not even do images as good as what you can do on your phone.
Imagine those days, so many equipments just to record. And now we have this.
So much effort by the materialists, right? They're working so hard to make money with the use of these big instruments, lugging them around. Anyway, we're getting to independent kinds of films instead of studios. Mother India came. You can spend a lot of time in this museum going through and reading every little. Okay, so there was one person who appeared in Indian cinema who they give him a whole floor at the museum, and that is, of course, Satyajit Ray, a Bengali filmmaker whose films really crossed over from the boundaries of India to the West. He made films that were very much in the universal cinema language, whereas Bollywood was increasingly becoming more unique to India, and those films barely made it past the India or Russia and China borders. So here's an example of a scene from Satyajit Ray. It was his Apu trilogy. It was the story of a young boy who grew up in 3 films, from one film to another. So every budding filmmaker will always make sure that they see the films of Satyajit Ray. So as we go on into the 60s, filmmaking in India, of course, was concentrated in 3 different places, mainly Bollywood, mainly Kolkata, and mainly Chennai. But there were other Malayalam films and regional films, Bhojpuri films, occasional Gujarati, some Marathi. Each language, of course, has its own cultural background, and those cultural backgrounds are always the best kinds of filmmaking. My favorite filmmaker is a filmmaker called I'll remember it in a minute. And this was India's response to that, and this set a wave of violence and sex into many films into the future, which you're looking at the results today on Indian screens of this film. This was a...
Can we see some?
You want to see it? Sure. I don't know, a little louder and I would definitely go on to the next one. Okay. You can't believe some of the things they use to make the sound of, like for instance, a horse. was the horse that was traveling on a desk. So that kind of movie conditioned your parents and your grandparents who went to see these movies